Yes, we are on it. All right, we just want to give a few more minutes for everybody to come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Give a few minutes for everybody to come in. Welcome to all of those that are joining in tonight so far. One of our guests is just having a few minor technical difficulties, but we're getting started as promised. We apologize for this small delay, but we are moving forward as promised tonight. We are moving forward. All right. I hope everybody's been having. Let me know right now in the comments. You can hear me. Give a thumbs up. Let me know that you can hear us and see as well. Um, we definitely want to make sure that we are able to be heard and viewed without any issues. Let everybody know. Put a post on your personal page, Instagram story, Facebook page, what have you. Let them know we are on right now as promised. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready to have this conversation and this dialogue tonight. We have two out of our three guests here tonight so far, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I could say a lot about them. They are incredible individuals. I mean, extremely incredible. And I've known them for some years now. And it's amazing how, when you have great relationships, as time passes, you don't even realize how much time has passed. But we are excited that they're with us tonight. But we are on live. We are live right now. I am going to my personal page as well right now on Facebook, if I can maneuver through here. And I'm setting a post right now, letting them know we are live right now. Give me a few more minutes, just a few more minutes, and we are getting started as promised. All right, we are live. Come on in. Just flip it around. Says I don't know if you can hear me. Just flip it around. The camera or what have you. All right. I'm going to give it a few more minutes for everybody to join in, and then we're getting started tonight, y'all. So far, we are moving forward. All right, as promised tonight. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for those of you who are joining in. We are excited about this conversation, and we definitely are looking forward to hopefully opening up our eyes to see some things about ministry, about life, how important it is for us to make sure that we take care of ourselves, and what does it mean to be a healthy minister, or not just even a healthy minister, but a healthy person in ministry. Because oftentimes we go through life with this idea, it's almost as if it's an unwritten rule that ministers don't have problems or have problems. And we're going to enjoy all of those notions tonight with this conversation. So we are trying to give a few more minutes, and because I definitely want to respect our guest schedule and time, but I'm trying to give a few more minutes for more people to join us tonight. We've been pushing this. We've been trying to promote it. We are so serious. The content tonight is going to literally bless your life. So definitely let people know we are on. We're waiting for you. Uh, Lee, if you can hear me, uh, we can't see you, and we can't hear you. So if you're saying something, we can't hear you. Uh, all right. All right. She's still trying to get on. All right. We're going to go ahead and move forward. Um, if she's able to get on our last guest, Lee, if she's able to get on, that'd be great. But we're going to try to go ahead and move forward. Again, guys, go ahead and push it. I'm going to ask my leadership team, you know who you are. Let's get the word out. Let people know we are on. We're moving forward so that we can get everything going. We're about almost 7 minutes in, and we definitely want to move this right along. All right. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined us tonight. We are so excited to definitely have you be with us on Thursday night. We know that there are so many things that are going on tonight. But as promised, as far as our young ministers and those that are part of this alliance are concerned, we definitely want to make sure that we bring to you what we promised you originally. Of course, it took some time for us to adjust, readjust, restructure some things so that we could definitely provide you with what we promised you originally. But we are definitely desirous to give you the content that we promised, and we hope that what is shared tonight will bless you. We have two of our guests, incredible individuals who I've known for some years. Whew. Oh, yeah. I was thinking about that earlier. We've known them. I've known them for some time, but they are incredible, incredible individuals, phenomenal teachers in their own right, and counselors, mental health professionals, business professionals, and they have taken time out of their illustrious, busy schedule to be with us tonight. And I'm
Yes.
grateful that they have taken the time to sacrifice and be with us tonight. I could say more, but I'm not. I'm not. I promise I'm not saying anymore because I want them to introduce themselves, give us a little bit of information about them, who they are, what they do, the years of experience that they've had with this, and just whatever else that they want to share. We'll start with our ladies first tonight. Take the stage. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Malika Brown, residing from sunny Southern California. Um, and I have a lot of hats that I wear. I am a mental health clinician, but I'm also a college professor. So I'm an associate professor at two colleges here in California, which is my main job. It pays the bills. Then I also work in ministry. So I am an ordained minister of the PAW. My mother is my pastor, so that comes with a whole host of things, of duties that come along with that. Just as far as being in the mental health side of this, still kind of young in it. So it's been less than 5 years, and I'm still learning. But a lot of this has been things that I've had to apply to my life personally, specifically as a minister, to just do better, to be able to juggle all the different hats. That doesn't even include being a wife, being a mother, and all the other things that come along with my day to day.
Awesome. Awesome. My friend, my brother, go ahead, sir.
Yes, well, my name is Ray Van Key. I am all the way from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Out of all these individuals that are on this broadcast tonight, it is the latest where I am. So I want y'all to know that. I am a clinical psychologist. I have been in the field of mental health, actually counseling individuals for a little bit over 13 years. I own my own private practice in the Philadelphia area, empowerment counseling, coaching, and consulting, which is now a completely virtual practice. So if you're looking for a psychologist, I am available. I am also a preacher of the gospel. I've been preaching since age 23, 24. I may not look like it, but I am the big 4-0. So about
Come
16
on
years,
here.
16 years of preaching the gospel. And I feel like I'm uniquely equipped to integrate psychology and faith. I'm a licensed elder in the PAW and also one of the the youngest committee member for one of our newest committees in PAW, the Committee on Health, Education, and Wellness, spearheaded by Diocesan Bishop Roland Hairston. So I am excited. I am all about it.
This is phenomenal. All right, guys, as you can see, and when our third guest come in, I'm definitely going to allow her space and time to let her introduce herself and be able to allow you all to be familiarized with her. As you can see, guys, our guests tonight are not novices. They have experience, they are credible, and they have a lot to share with us and to pour into us tonight. So you're going to get the best. You're going to get the best of information tonight. And I hope that you really take advantage of the conversation. So as we get started, let's deal with this. And I'm trying to figure out, yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, let's do this. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Let's get started. The first question for tonight. What are some of the common misconceptions with transparency in the pulpit? How far is too far? Anyone can take it. Anyone can take it. I'll let whoever want to take it first.
Okay, so I'll go.
Yes.
All right, so it was funny that this question was on here because I actually, somehow in my memories, it came up in 2009. I wrote something about transparency in ministry. And just looking at it, I was like, well, what's the definition? Because we use that word all the time, but do we really know what transparency means? It simply means capable of transmitting light so that the object or images can be seen as if there's no intervening material. So the light we're reflecting is God. We're the intervening material. If we're transparent, you shouldn't see us, you should see him. The challenge is when we're transparent, we're bragging about the stuff that we've done to give ourselves credibility or whatever it is that we're trying to do. And we're not reflecting what should be the primary thing, which is God. So I feel like I don't know how to say what's too far because it depends on the situation, what's necessary. But if I see you and not God, then that's out of pocket. I should only see God and I shouldn't see you.
Okay, great. I have a follow-up question, but before I do that, we have our third guest that has joined us tonight. Listen, y'all, there's so much I can say about this special person. She is near and dear to me and my wife, her and the entire family, her husband. We love them. She is an extraordinary individual, brilliant mind. I'm not going to say too much more. I want her to introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, experiences, anything that you can share with us. The floor is yours, Lee.
Yes, hello. My apologies for my tardiness. I was having some technical difficulties. But my name is Lee Vincent. I am a mental health therapist and I reside out of Kansas City, Missouri. I recently got licensed not too long ago, just last year actually around this time. So it's just crazy that it's only been a year, but learning so much. But I've been doing mental health for over 10 years since the day I graduated from college. I've done case management for a number of years. I've helped with program development. I've helped with foster care kiddos. Anything within mental health care, just about you name it, I've probably done it. Did a little bit in even acute psych as well. And so currently I'm an intensive in-home therapist working with kiddos who are getting out of psychiatric hospital. and trying to reintegrate into the community and trying to stabilize them there. I also do some part-time private practice counseling at one of the local churches that are here in Kansas City. And so I love this. I love the therapy. I think it's great for everyone. I think everyone can benefit from it. I love the integration between therapy and spirituality and think that there's such a need for it in all communities. And so that's kind of my mission, my mantra, is to try to be able to bridge the gap between mental health and spirituality and how those things can be integrated for overall wellness.
Phenomenal. As again, guys, as you can see, we don't have novices here tonight. We have those that are truly knowledgeable, credible, and the information you're going to get is so vital to your success as a minister. But not only that, but your personal well-being, which we are really aiming to target for tonight. If I did that right. All right. Again, the question is, what are some of the common misconceptions with transparency in the pulpit? How far is too far? From a psychological standpoint, is there such thing? Now, Dr. Brown gave us so much in the beginning. Dr. Malika gave us so much in the beginning. And she hit on some things that it does depend on the context. So to be able to determine how far is too far is, there's no real true way to measure that. From the rest of our guests' perspective, what do you have to say? What is your insight concerning that question? How far is too far when it comes to transparency in the pulpit?
Well, when I think about transparency, oftentimes the word leader comes to mind, and I believe that in order to be a good leader, we're talking about ministers or being in ministry, but oftentimes that kind of puts you or positions you in leadership, and any good leader needs to be transparent. And as far as I'm concerned, either you're transparent or you're not. And I think that people operationalize transparency and they get it mixed up with what I would call anxious disclosure.
Wow.
Some people in this generation, they might call it being real.
Right.
Yeah.
And being real can mess up your destiny and your reputation.
Wow.
And the influence that you were meant to have. So I think that leadership, being in ministry, requires transparency, and you can be transparent all the time, but that doesn't necessarily equate to an anxious disclosure all the time.
Wow.
And I feel like it goes too far when you feel like you've got to tell all the details of what's going on with you.
Okay, so now what you're saying is there are boundaries that set. I've never heard of that. See, guys, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Disclosure. So there's such thing as spilling too much in the moment, when reality is, if you already provide a level of balance with transparency already, that's consistent and that's already transparent, it's already real enough. You don't have to go further. Okay, Lee, your thoughts?
Sure. I don't know if this was said before. I apologize. I missed, I think, the first portion of when we had first introduced this. But I think that, I think of it in terms of like ethics. We have ethics within our counseling profession that says, do no harm to my client. And so I would translate that, the same thing, to the pulpit. If what I'm telling or what I'm sharing is going to be harmful to someone in my audience, then maybe I shouldn't share that piece. And we do disclosure within counseling as a way to build rapport and to normalize, to let someone be more comfortable with some of the issues that they're going through, to know that they're not alone in this world. So I think in that context, we need to do that. We need to make sure we're letting people know that I too am fallible. I too have messed up. I have had struggles in my life. I have overcome those struggles. But if me preaching now puts a burden on my congregation to where they're more worried about me than they're worried about themselves, If I'm kind of spilling all my own personal beans, so now
Yeah.
it's no longer about you, it's about me, and I'm trying to be comforted in this position, then I think that that's where we've kind of gone a bit too far, because we've missed our mark. We, as those that are in leadership, are here to help others, and we can get our own counsel to help ourselves at the appropriate time. But across the pulpit, in time of when it's time to lift God's name and draw people, is not the time to get my own personal, thoughts and concerns out to the people in terms of what's going on with me, and we in doing that with disclosure. So I always think you got to think in the back of your head: is this going to be helpful or harmful to the people I'm talking to?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Any of our guests, y'all have any follow-up statements or thoughts to that? Or
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's
hey,
good.
that was good.
You're opening
Yeah,
up a can of worms when you start talking about that.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Ethics is a whole nother thing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a whole, which is I think is
Mm-hmm.
something that I don't know if that's something really a lot of our churches. I don't want to speak, you know, I try to use the term and ministry different because sometimes we do a discredit or disservice to the church to talk about the church when the church is so broad, but more so it's ministries that the focus go towards, and this is another question that we'll probably get into later. Is church hurt real? And we'll talk about that, but more so, I want to say, in the nutshell, ministries, I think, struggle with having that integrated within their infrastructure, a code of ethics. And I think that even though we are in ministry, um, there are still processes and procedures that we need to follow, protocols, word that we like to use so much in church and don't use it right. Uh, there should be a protocol that all of us adhere to. So this is phenomenal because for us in this generation, it's all about being real.
Right.
But based on what you all have shared tonight, there are parameters to being real because you don't want to hurt someone in the same process of trying to heal them or
Right.
send information that's going to be healing to them.
Mhm.
And so, okay, great. Okay, this is good. This is good. This is good. Next thought then. And I'm just pulling from the list. Is it possible, since we're dealing with transparency, I think this is a good follow-up question. Is it possible to preach your inner struggles away? Or is preaching a drug to temporarily relieve the stress of an inner issue, which ultimately leads to avoidance? Anybody?
Yeah. It's so
Anybody?
loaded.
So loaded.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ray.
I mean, I believe there are times where God will allow you to minister a word to an individual that also ministers to you.
Right.
I
Good.
don't know about anybody else, but I used to struggle regarding whether or not I was worthy to preach a particular word because maybe I hadn't perfected myself in that thing yet, or I felt like I needed healing first before I could heal somebody else. But sometimes God, he can kill two birds with one stone with a word as well, and we have to not fight God on that. But the question is, can you preach your inner struggles away? I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
think so. One of the reasons why I feel like this conversation is good is because just as therapists and psychologists, which we are, we're often taught that in order to be a good therapist, you need your own therapy.
Yep.
That
Absolutely.
helps you to be
Yep.
keenly aware, self-aware about what's going on with you and in you so that you can differentiate between what your stuff is and what somebody else's stuff is. If you can't differentiate that, you'll wind up preaching and your stuff comes up across the pulpit
Right.
and it's not helping nobody. You're trying to work something out in front of the people and don't even realize that we're watching you work something out from behind the pulpit that has nothing to do with us.
Right.
My goodness.
So you can't preach the struggles away.
Oh
You
my God.
You gotta work it out.
Right.
You gotta process
So,
it. You gotta work
so
with
I asked this question when you're talking about struggles. I mean, that's such a loaded word. Like, how do you want to label struggles? Is it our issues, the things that we carry because of our life experiences, etc.? Because I feel, for me, and I agree with Ray, I think we all concur on this, the answer is no. You can't preach it away. But if you're struggling with something, the only way you can really get rid of it or heal that particular thing is to deal with it. So maybe you're using your preaching as a way to divert your attention from that issue to not have to deal with it. When you get back home, it's still going to be there. So we always talk about, from a counseling perspective, that you really can't heal something that you won't face. So I deal with a lot of trauma clients. They have to deal with the trauma in order for them to get past it. Forgetting about it, repressing it, it doesn't go away. What ends up happening is stuff triggers it. You can't control your responses because of different things. So you're not going to get rid of it by preaching. And then the other issue I see is that oftentimes, and this is not just for ministers, this is for church people in general, we trade one addiction for another. So we may have had our addictive issues in the world, and now the church, and that high that we get from being in a church service is now our new addiction. But we still haven't dealt with the stuff that we had when we were out there. We still bring that stuff in there. We speak in tongues. That's wonderful. Your spiritual man gets regenerated, but this flesh still has stuff it has to overcome and to deal with. And so you can't preach it away. I do agree with what Ray said. There are times the word ministers to you while you're ministering to the people, but you still need to deal with your stuff. You, as a minister, the biggest thing I always say, you have to have your person or your group of people that's your circle that you can go to and be raw, transparent, and free with. If you don't want to go to a therapist, I recommend having a therapist, but have your group of people that you can go to really just deal with the stuff that comes with the weight of being a minister, because you may have baggage that you didn't realize you had, and you brought that into the church. And as you start down your journey and God starts to heal different things, stuff starts coming out of you that you didn't even realize was there. So preaching a sermon is not going to get rid of that. And I'm not negating the power of preaching, because we know that he used the foolishness of preaching to save souls. So I believe in that. But you can't preach it away. And so if you think that that's going to do it, all you're doing is avoiding. And that's a whole nother can of worms that comes with avoiding problems.
And I think I would agree with both of those. I think it now then becomes almost like a manipulation of the pulpit. So it's almost like this counter transference issue. Your stuff is coming into me, and now I'm flooding out with my stuff, and it's not about you anymore. And I'm using the pulpit to now self-soothe, and that's not what the pulpit is there for. The pulpit is there to admonish God, to lift him up, and to draw people. So I agree with everyone. Exactly. We can get freedom within some of the words, even in studying. Every time I preach, I'm like, man, I am preaching to me first.
Right.
And to review. But if I got up there and now I'm just spilling all my stuff, trying to get my healing while I'm behind the lectern, it's the wrong timing. And now it becomes, to me, like almost a counter transference issue. Like your stuff is coming out of me, and that's not the appropriate place for that. So I would have to agree with everybody. It's a no. It's not the right time.
Can I also add that for those preachers out there, preaching can be a defense mechanism in and of itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it at best it can be, or it can be what I would consider projection.
Yeah.
You know, there are preachers who deal with things and struggle with things, and the way that they bring down the anxiety that internal stuff causes them is to preach about it.
Wow.
And preach to people about it. So you're preaching to people about stuff and saying God hates it or God's against it, but you're really preaching against the stuff you hate in yourself.
Right.
And to bring down your anxiety, to preach about it makes you feel good, at least temporarily. Lord, I talked about it. Lord, I preached about it. I preached hard about it, but it's still there.
Right.
You know, so be careful not to even use preaching as a defense mechanism.
Oh my!
It can be used that way.
So, guys, you're saying that there is such thing as toxic preaching?
Absolutely.
You be
If
adding
there are toxic people,
Come on. I mean,
you toxic preaching.
You've
I want
seen
to push the
sermons.
buttons. I
No,
want
but
to push the.
you've heard sermons where the person's preaching and you're like, what is this about? Like, where is this coming from? Because you can tell it has nothing to do with the people in the audience. This is their issue. And
Right.
so it's one of the things, the reason why we need to go to therapy as therapists to work our stuff out is so we don't bring our biases into the relationship with our
There it
clients.
is.
Yep.
As a
Yes.
minister, you come in with your stuff. If you don't deal with that, that bias comes across the pulpit. So you're
Yep.
telling me about all this stuff and God said and this and that, and then come to find out that's your issue, and that's the reason why you were preaching on it. So
Oh
yeah,
my.
very much there's toxic preaching. No names will be called. We have all seen it.
I know that's
Toxic.
right. I know that's right.
Toxic.
Because that was one thing that I think it was Bishop Wagner. I was watching some old video where he was at his church, and he was, I think Bishop Ionalock or Dr. Ionalock at the time had just finished ministry, and he was talking about her ministry and how the Lord blessed, and he was using her as an example to emphasize. It's almost as if he was teaching a principle to his ministers and to the congregation that a preacher, now let's we can put it in context, but to be mindful of preaching from a place of anger or a hurt place, because until you've really experienced the healing. Now, like you said, you can preach yourself to deliverance yourself because you're looking for that way out. But in those settings or contexts, when a person is preaching themselves into a place of deliverance, it is because they have allowed the word of God
Right.
to be the word of God, and they're not interjecting what they're dealing with in that moment with the word. So they're still using them as a vessel to get his word and only his word out. That's how a person can preach themselves into deliverance. Because the person may be on here asking the questions, well, if I can't preach from a hurt place, or if I can't, if I don't want to be a toxic preacher or preaching a toxic message, how then do I preach myself into deliverance? How can that work if we're saying that I should avoid this? And I guess the answer is you want to make sure that it's only God speaking through you, because it is possible for God to speak through you, even though you're in pain yourself. Would you agree?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think you have to be okay with acknowledging that even while you're preaching.
Good. Okay.
You need to be able to say, that I'm aware that this is what I'm about to say. This is my stuff.
Right.
So that people know what to absorb and what not to absorb.
Right.
Wow.
But if you're not aware of that, you won't even say that in your preaching.
So that's healthy transparency.
Yes.
Right. I think that a disclaimer has to be said. If you're going to begin to talk about something that you personally feel, you need to have a disclaimer. This is my opinion. I have
Thank
felt, or
you.
maybe I have experienced this, and maybe using that as some sort of an example. But again, it still needs to somehow be connecting to whatever it is that you're preaching and connecting to leading people to Christ. But
Wow.
you have to let people know. This is me here. Now this is just me, Lee Vincent, showing up. This is not a prophetic utterance, thus said the Lord. This
Love
is
it.
just me here.
Right.
And I'd like for this to tie into somebody. Maybe I'm saying this so it relates to somebody. I'm trying to be relevant towards someone in the audience who may also be feeling this. But to not make that disclaimer and now just continue to preach as if this was some sort of download from God, I think that that's harmful. That's negligent.
Oh my God, I love this. All right, so we could be here all
Listen,
night. So
we have biblical examples of that. Paul was very good at that.
Yes, he was. He was the master of it.
If you read his books, he was very clear. He would say, "This is not a commandment from the Lord.
he
Right.
said it.
This is me giving my spiritual suggestion. I believe I have the Holy Ghost. I'm going to say this, but this is not a command from the Lord. This is
Right.
Paul speaking."
Right.
Oh, that's one of my favorite scriptures, by the way. Like that verse is one of my, because it's so true. He's like, this is I'm letting you know this is not God. Like you said, because of my position, I feel that I can share this, but it's my position, it's my opinion, but this is not a command. Y'all, that is in the Bible. Just for those of you who are watching, just read. It's in. Trust me.
It's
I'll
in the
find the
book.
text in the book.
In the book.
So let's this goes into the next phrase, and guys, just bear with us if we go a little bit over our time. If the guests are okay with that, we have, if we go just a little bit over our time, I wanted to do an hour and 15, but if we push it to an hour and 30, um, just let me know. If the guests can't come, just, I got my phone out, just text me, let me know if you can't stay on, if you got to go. But I want to really dive into some of these questions here. The next question: what is the healthy way, or what is a healthy way to deal with grief while being in ministry? And the follow-up question to that is, what kind of effects will it have on you if you don't address that grief? So what is a healthy way to deal with grief in ministry?
I guess I'll go.
Grief is real.
So my father passed away. It'll be 3 years in June the 30th.
Mm.
He passed away on a Friday, and I was scheduled to preach Sunday morning. So
Mm,
we did not know this was coming. It surprised all of us, but it didn't change the fact that I still had to preach. Service still had to go on, regardless of what I was dealing with. So this was my transparent moment. When I got up there, I let them know that I need y'all to pray for me, because right now I'm dealing with losing my father, but I still have an assignment, because he gave me, this is how crazy it was. He gave me the message to preach that day, sitting at the bedside of my dad when he was in the hospital. And so I know it was orchestrated for a reason, but I had to be transparent and let them know this is what I'm dealing with. The challenge is, we don't, as leaders, do really well with taking care of ourselves when we have our stuff. We bear everybody else's stuff.
mm,
You're grieving, we're to be there for you. You need financial help, we'll try to find assistance for what you need. You need support, we're there. But we don't do the same things for ourselves. So you
mm,
have to deal with your emotions and your feelings, because grief is a very powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It can
yes.
cause a whole host of different things: depression, anxiety. There's so much stuff that can come from just a grief or not dealing with it. And so I had to be careful, because I found myself functioning. So I was still going to work, I was
Mm-hmm.
still doing things, but my motivation was low. It would take a lot for me to get up out the bed. I wasn't interacting with people. And I had to realize, okay, you need to take time to deal with this, because you're no good to no one else if you're
Mm,
not
mm,
healthy. I have to be healthy first in order to minister to somebody else, or in order to give therapy to somebody else. And so you have to deal with it. And we're not good as leaders with dealing with our issues, because we're so self-sacrificing to our detriment.
Mm-hmm.
We put
wow.
other stuff ahead of us. It's not selfish. Your priority number one should be you. That's
Right.
where it starts. Then everything else falls after that. And that doesn't, we know God is first, so that's not even in the equation. I'm talking about the stuff down here. You're first, then spouses, children, and however you want to prioritize after that. But I have to come first in order for me to continue to do what I'm called to do. So you have to grieve. You have to. It's
Wow.
okay. You're not weak because you're grieving. You're human. It's just
You're
what it is.
huge.
Yep.
Guys, you're going to hear that phrase a lot tonight. Those of you who are watching,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of understanding you're human. Okay.
Mhm.
Though we are spirit creatures, we are still completely in the flesh. We are human.
Mhm.
And this Messiah complex that we often have, that
Oh my
says,
God.
save every body and our burdens and things, we can bear it at the same time while trying to bear everybody else's burdens. Please
Mm-hmm.
understand, though it sounds very selfish in nature, you have to really understand the principle behind what Dr. Blake is sharing with you. You have to take care of you. You cannot do what you do without you. So you got to take care of you. That's the whole purpose of this name, Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry. I can say more, but I want the other guests chime in, whatever you have, whichever one, Ray, Lee, whichever one. Y'all are good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You sure? Sorry. I was just going to say, I think there needs to be a level of awareness that just
Mhm.
generally across the board, we've got to become a lot better at doing. We have a lot of things that are in our, just kind of out of our purview. They're just in our blind
Mhm.
spot. And sometimes I think grief can be one of those things. I think that we, as as ministers and as people, we can compartmentalize a lot of things. We can kind of put something on the shelf while we have to focus on X, Y, or Z to get things done. But at some point, that shelf is going to get overloaded if we don't start taking some things off of it and dealing with those things either in that moment or at least in some sort of subsequent moment. And so with grief, I think that that thing can really creep up on you, and it can be so pervasive. Grief hits in all kinds of random ways. So if you
Wow.
have not in any way dealt with that, it'll be the song on the radio or the person who
Mm-hmm.
comes or whatever that will catch you off guard, and now you will have grief in your face when you thought you had dealt with that. And so to me, it's about the self-care. It's about giving yourself space to feel and to mourn, to have that period of bereavement. But that doesn't mean that you now are not functional while you
Yeah.
are doing that. You can still grieve and be functional. That's okay. But if you're
Ooh.
not
Stay
aware,
there. Deal with that a little bit more, Lee. Come on, Doug. Deal with that a little bit more. Stay there,
well,
because we don't realize it, but it's true.
yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
we can do both. We're equipped to be able to do those things, just as Dr. Malika said. She had an assignment, but she was still grieving. But she took the time and space after the assignment was done to handle and to deal with the things that she was dealing with, as well as had the awareness to recognize. Now I'm starting to not have the motivation to get out of bed. Now I'm
Mm.
starting to not want to go to work. Things that maybe I was interested in, now I'm not. Those symptoms of what depression might begin to start looming, right? So grief can pull you down, but if you are unaware and you think it's okay because God's got me, the joy of the Lord is my strength, and we haven't allowed ourselves to recognize that I can be weak, I can actually
Mm-hmm.
ask for help. Maybe someone else can handle this in my stead while I'm in the middle of processing, then we're going to run ourselves into the ground. And
Wow.
unfortunately, if we do that, if you don't take care of yourself and you run yourself into the ground, some ministries will just be like, oh, too bad for you, and where's the next person? And that's really unfortunate because now we have a whole anointing and gifting that just got passed over because you wouldn't do it yourself. So
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
take the Superman cape off. It's okay.
Right.
It's all right.
Oh my God.
Can I add something, please?
Go for
Go,
it.
Ray.
Please
Go, Ray.
take your time. Please go ahead.
Woo! Because this Superman Messiah complex, superhero complex that y'all
Deal
talking,
with it.
this is about healthy me, healthy ministry. My question is, what do we do for the minister who actually gets something out of refusing to grieve
Yep.
Ooh.
in order to appear as if they are super anointed, super strong,
Ooh.
to an assignment, all those types of things? Dr. Malika, I appreciate your testimony and you talking about sacrificing or being self-sacrificing to a certain degree. But for some of these preachers, it's not about self-sacrificing. It's about
Mm.
the image, reputation, and the future praise that they will get in return for this
Mm.
investment of acting like nothing bothers me.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Well,
That is a mental health issue. If you
Right.
can't sit down and you have lost 5 people in a row and
Come
you
on,
feel
man.
like you're the one that still got to do something, I'm going to question you because a lot of our identities are wrapped up in what we do. And outside of what we do, we don't know who we are.
Tell that.
yep.
Thank
Say
you.
that again.
Today,
Yes.
you are human. You are in ministry, which means that there are some things that you do. But when you're not doing that, you will have to still have an identity. And that identity could be, I'm a human that's hurting right now.
Mm-hmm.
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 So we need to cut that. Oh, I'm sacrificing. I'm so committed to ministry. Oh, I got to be strong for the people. I got to do my duties. No, you don't. Not all the time. Some people in your congregation need to see you stop what you're doing
Yep.
Right.
That's
and
healthy.
take care of yourself.
Right.
Oh my.
Stop what you're doing and take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. So let's stay here just for a little bit. Let's entertain this idea, because one of the golden thread in everything that we've discussed so far has been circled around the importance, and this is again gets back to the name of the session tonight, about how we as ministers we are literally And let's just be honest, we are destroying this idea that ministers shouldn't go to therapy. Ministers shouldn't get help because we have been taught in the church for so long that, God is the answer to everything, and He is. We're not denying that.
Mm-hmm.
But why, anyone can take this question, why is it so important for us to be open and accepting to the idea of getting counseling, to get therapy? Why is that so important, especially considering the day that we're living in? And anybody can take this. Anybody can take this.
Well, that's one of my biggest personal pet peeves is that we don't look at mental health in the same context as we look at physical health.
Yep.
Mm,
We don't tell people you don't need to take your vitamins, honey. Stop that chemo. Don't use your insulin because you have God on your side. You are a minister of the gospel, and He will equip you to do all things. We don't do that.
Hmm.
We don't tell people to stop exercising, to stop eating right. We don't do any of those things. But for
right.
some reason, we tell people they don't need their medications, they don't need to talk to anybody, and God's got you. And that idea is just outdated. I think
Yes.
it's crippling, and I think it's been damaging to people
Hmm.
because now I've got these issues and concerns or stuff that I'm dealing with, and I don't know what to do. I've been praying. I've been fasting. I have been in the church, and this thing will still not get off my back. But just like
Right.
we do diagnosis with physical health, we look at what the symptoms are and then we'll prescribe you a treatment. If the prayer and the fasting and the slaying and the oil and all this has not helped you with your depression, sweetheart, maybe it's time to see somebody and see a specialist
Thank
in that
you.
area. And there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. It's just for me, it's just plain and simple. We just got to stop the stigma and begin to speak it out loud. If you wouldn't tell someone to stop chemo, then don't tell somebody not to go to therapy. It's negligent. It's not okay.
I agree.
Man.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that because it's a pet peeve for me too. I feel
Go
like
ahead.
we make faith and being saved and mental health mutually exclusive. Like if you have one, you can't have the other. And I don't know where that comes from because spirituality is very beneficial to your mental health.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
the historically, I think this is part of it. We believed historically that mental health was because of demons. It was caused by a demonic possession. Like that was like going back hundreds and hundreds of years. That was the belief. So we've carried that into the church. Oh, you're depressed. Okay, well, you need to get delivered from that spirit that's on you, that spirit of
Ooh,
depression,
come
right?
on.
But okay, so you're telling me that I spoke in tongues, I have the Holy Ghost, but then I also got another spirit inside of me? That's not
Ah,
biblical.
let's deal
So
with it.
that mentality is the reason why I feel like we still struggle. Churches are better today, but let's just go back 20 years. You didn't see
Just 20
churches
years.
that had therapists on staff at their church. You see it today, 20 years ago, and that's not a long time. Some people on here are barely over 20. So we have to get out that mentality that it means we lack faith, we're not saved because we go see a therapist. Just like you go to the medical doctor who's an expert, who went to school for years, did residency and all the different things to be an expert in that field. You go to a mental health clinician because they went to school for years and did their internships and their
Yes.
residencies to be an expert in the area because the psyche is a very powerful thing. Mental illness is in the Bible. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar, hello. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
whole story
absolutely.
within itself. So you
Absolutely.
have to be careful with trying to make it's this or that. You can still be saved on the couch. You can still be saved taking your medication and work some things out. Use your spirituality and your salvation to help you along the journey. Sometimes it's going to be rough, but because I'm saved and because I have God, it makes the journey a little bit easier for me to get through as I work through some of this stuff. But we're shaming folks, and that's part of the issue is the shame.
Ooh. Ooh, this is so good, y'all. This is so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Great,
I
go ahead.
I see therapy as a strategy. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
pose it to people.
That's good.
You know, we try to complicate it and we try to make it like people are, you know, turning to some other God and turning it back on a real God because they're talking to somebody. No, you're making it too deep. Therapy is a strategy. And the scripture that I like to use, the scripture says in Romans, the 12th chapter, talks about be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Never
And I
mind.
think as the church, we've done a good job focusing on the be not conformed to this world in terms of how we dress, how we talk, who we make friends with, all those types of things. We shout and praise God over, I'm not conformed to this world. I don't look like the world. I don't act like the world. Goodbye, world. I stay no longer with you. But we never get to the but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, how does that transformation take place? I believe that transformation comes through words. And if you're talking to somebody whose words align with the word, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a preacher, then you have an opportunity for a transformed mind, because we're not just talking about salvation. We're talking about your family of origin dynamics. We're talking about how you were raised in your old church. We're talking about the traumas that you've been through, the rapes that you've been through, the toxic relationships that you've been through. If you don't have any words coming into your ears to transform how you think, you will be a saved, skirt wearing to the floor saint that's crazy.
Right. That part.
The end. You don't have a renewed mind. That's why you speak in tongues and you're still stuck.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And
you're
I think
in church 7 days a week, but you're not seeing any success in your finances or your relationships or your career. What's the problem? Your mind is not transformed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I just wanted to like add to that and just again dispelling myths. Like, this is not a failure of your faith if you say I am struggling with X, Y, and Z. That is not a failure of faith. It doesn't mean I didn't pray hard enough, I didn't fast well enough, that my relationship is lacking with God. Just like everyone has said on here, you can be Holy Ghost filled and still dealing with depression or anxiety or trauma or marital issues, whatever it is that might be concerning you. And so, if you would seek out a doctor, if you have an issue, this is the same to me context. You are seeking out a professional to get professional help. You're not, if your car isn't running and you've tinkered with it as much as you possibly could, at some point you're going to take it to the garage because someone knows more than you do. It's the same thing with mental health. I'm sorry, I know more than you do. I studied this. This is what I do on the daily. I have a library to the gods to try to inform me of all the things that could help you and be tools to put you back on the right path, and so that your car can run properly for you. So this is not a question of faith. That's actually, I think it's more courageous to seek out help and get help. And I think it can increase your faith if you go ahead and deal with those issues. You've now cleared out room in your mind for God to now be able to speak to you. You had so many voices, so much cloudiness going on in your mind that was impacting and impeding you being able to receive a message from God. Can you imagine if some of that clutter was out of your mind? Now how well you can hear God. And now it can actually increase your faith instead of being a questioning of your faith.
Listen, counseling is so powerful that some people actually need it in order to receive the Holy Ghost.
Right.
You're dealing with low self-worth. Wow. And you're feeling like God doesn't want to fill you, or you don't deserve to be filled, or why would a holy God touch a dirty you? You need somebody to talk to you first instead of constantly tarrying with you for the Holy Ghost. Because once we deal with that root issue of low self-worth, the Holy Ghost can come right in right then and there.
Man.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So let's a can of worms opened up. Yeah, my mind. But I can attest to that. I can attest to the world and the space. And I really, because we could be here all night, and I don't want to do that. I want to honor time, but I can even talk about from my own personal standpoint of dealing with grief and trauma. Didn't know at the time that's what I was dealing with, um, because I didn't know how to process it, and the impact that it had on me physically. Because at some point, if you don't deal with it at the root, where it's more of a
Yeah.
psychological issue, it does manifest
Yep.
physically, and you're
Mhm.
now having health problems and conditions, and you go to the doctor and there's like, no, there's nothing wrong with your heart is fine. Like maybe that was a panic
Mhm.
attack and a stroke. You're just, you got high blood pressure. Will help bring it back down, but your heart is fine. Like you're stressed, and it's like, hold up, I didn't know I was dealing with stress because I started to compartmentalize the issue, and I repressed it and found other things to do to stay functional, not knowing that I was dealing with the issue, wasn't dealing with the issue um, at the base or the root level, which is psychologically and emotionally, and just talk. Ray is my witness because he was one of the first persons I went to. He was like, I hear that you're angry. You're angry and there's unresolved anger inside of you. And he said, you need to talk more. You need to talk more. You need to find some people, a trusted group of friends, and you need to talk and express how you feel, and just make sure that they can listen and handle what you have to say. And you will find how that will be therapeutic for you and healing for you if you converse with somebody. But then the other side was also make sure that the person, like you said earlier, can bring the words and pour things back into you, because now once you open yourself up and empty yourself out, you're open and you're vulnerable. It's acceptable.
Mhm.
So you got to make sure that the right person is pouring
Right.
back, which is okay from a person who's a professional who went to school for this. And what people don't understand is therapists and counselors, clinicians, all of them, they have to go through counseling and therapy themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's
They
required.
Yep.
require. They think
It's
that you all
required.
going to school. No, they have to go through a process of cleansing for themselves to be able to
Mm-hmm.
handle everyone else, which I think is powerful. Okay, another. Let's deal with this. What's another question that we can pull up here? Oh, yes. In regard to, I had this question earlier. It'll come to me later. Then, when we deal with issues concerning demon possession,
Hmm.
how do we as ministers determine the difference between a person that is demon possessed and or mentally ill? What should be done with dealing with either or? And can a person be both? And if so, what should be done in that circumstance? But how do we distinguish if a person is this demon possessed or mentally ill? What should be done in either situation, or can a person be both? And if they are, what should be done in those type of circumstances? Since we are ministers and we always in our culture, especially neo-Pentecostalism, deal with casting out the devil, we're quick to say that's a spirit. You got a spirit. Oh, you got a demon in you. We're so quick to make this assumption, but how do you really discern when it's a demon and the person is just dealing with a mental problem? And is it possible for both? So, uh, Malika, Dr. Malika, we'll start with you, and then we'll come in with the others.
All
Whoever
right.
wants to.
Well, this is kind of loaded, so I'll give
Okay.
my personal my personal comment. So if it's not PC, I'm sorry, y'all. If if you got the Holy Ghost, discernment comes with that. So let's just start there. I
Yes.
feel like you can discern certain things that are going on with people. Now, this goes into our biases when we don't deal with our stuff and we try to make our stuff something else and project out. But I feel like you can tell the difference between when there's a spiritual issue, just as a minister, or if this is something else. So I'll give you an example. I had a pastor that referred a member to me because they came to the altar and they were coming for deliverance with issues, but in the midst of that, some other stuff came up that was not a spiritual thing. So there was some trauma in the person's history, and they just started spilling stuff out. And he was like, okay, I'm going to pray with you, but I'm going to give you a referral to someone so that you could talk to someone that's a mental health clinician so you can get help for that issue. So he was able to see, and he's not in mental health, like that's not even what he does professionally, but he was able to see that this was something else. And I feel like our Holy Ghost, number one, will let us know that. Then there's certain things and behaviors that I feel like we have to look for. We always think that, oh, if a person has a demon, they'll be talking nonsensical and they'll be doing bizarre things. But I'm like, well, some of the demons in the Bible, they spoke very clear with clarity with what they had to say. When you have a mental illness, there could be a distortion of your thoughts. There can be a distortion of your speech. There can be all kinds of stuff that comes with that. There are differentiations, and we have to stop kind of cartoonizing the way we think demons operate and go to the scriptures and look at how did the demons operate in the scriptures, because there's plenty of examples of when there was a demon and they were spoken to and how they responded when the man of God was speaking to them. So I think that that's the first thing. Number one, your Holy Ghost should be enough to where you're able to feel and discern what's going on from a spiritual standpoint. But then also, if you're not sure what that should look like, go to the scriptures. There's plenty of examples of how the demons operated, and nothing is new now than what was happening back then. And that's a good guideline. Yeah, it's the same stuff. Like, I've seen people talking to themselves and saying things that just didn't go together, and people were praying for them. And I'm like, well, that's good. I said, but they need to go see someone. I said, that's not a spiritual issue. I said, they need to go see somebody. And everybody is like, they yelling and hitting them and I'm like, okay, y'all can do all of that. But after you're done, they need a referral.
Back to your point, this is what you just said proves why what you said originally about the scriptures being a guideline is so important, because what people fail to realize, demons are intelligent beings. They're spirit beings, but they're very intelligent. For a person to be able to identify, we are many, my name is Legion. I'm going to tell you what my name is. I'm going to tell you. I'm Legion, or we are many. I'm identifying what's in us, which about 6,000 or 7,000 demons in me. I can recognize what's in me, but at the same time, demons, that same spirit of legion or legions that was in the man when Christ showed up, literally, even the demon fell down on his knees and worshiped, because there's that understanding of whose presence I'm in. So, all right, some others. Doctor, I saw you earlier on the edge, so go ahead, man, jump in.
So, can I be a preacher teacher for a second?
Do so.
Because I think this is where the church has failed to a degree. Some churches, I can't say every church, but yes, I do believe as a minister and with the Holy Ghost does come a level of discernment. But we can't forget about those 9 gifts of the Spirit. Right. And one of those gifts of the Spirit is the discerning of spirits.
Yes.
And if we look at the root word of discern, the root word for discern and diagnose is exactly the same. So God has anointed and gifted people with the ability to diagnose who don't have training. And we need to know who those people are, and those people need to know if they have that gift. Because if they have that gift, they can determine whether the behavior is motivated by angelic motivation, demonic motivation, or human nature. I think we are missing that in our churches. So my statement is that every minister can't distinguish. They have a level of discernment. But the people, whether they're a minister or not, who have the gift of the discerning of spirits, are people we need to pull on. As an altar worker, I look for that person. If you have the discerning of spirits, you need to be on the altar work team, because you can help triage people in the right direction. But we don't use that model. So, that's my thinking in terms of mental health and demonic possession at the same time. That can be the case. You know,
Okay.
sometimes some mental illnesses open up the door for demonic influence.
Mhm.
You know,
Absolutely.
so you're feeling
Mhm.
depressed, you're feeling anxious, and sometimes the symptoms of our mental health issues mimic demonic activity.
Mhm.
So that could be the case too, but you need somebody who's able to distinguish, to discern. Paul and his company, they had a woman with a spirit of divination following them for days. Okay.
Yes.
And she was saying the right thing. She said, these are men of the most high God. There was no lie in that. But the Bible says
Mhm.
after a while, Paul was vexed in his spirit
Mhm.
and he was able to distinguish whether this was a prophetic word or this was prompted by demonic activity, and then cast the spirit out.
And
Mhm.
then, yes, sir.
Then cast the spirit out. So we need those people on our teams, and we need to know that, hey, we need to have conversations too. When in doubt, ask questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When in
Mhm.
doubt, ask questions. I heard the one story where somebody's working the altar and somebody was acting out, and they pulled the person to them and said, listen, if you don't behave yourself, we're going to have to call the police. And they calmed themselves down and sat down. Wasn't no in the
Listen,
name of Jesus, wasn't no come out Satan, wasn't no loose here, back to the pit, none of that. No, we're going to call the police if you don't behave yourself. They sat down and conducted themselves accordingly.
I love that.
They wanted
Oh,
attention, is what
every
they want.
Right.
Personality disorder, trying to tear up the church. That's what it was.
that's
Right.
what
So
it
we
was.
got to ask questions.
And I think
Oh,
again, if
Lee,
we can,
jump in to give you context for what Lee is about to say, y'all. I'm not cutting her off. Trust me, I'm about to give you context because I
mhm.
know for certain she's dealt with this. She's had multiple experiences with folk like this. So, God bless her. So please, Lee, take yes, come.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think I even said it before. If you've tried spiritual measures and those seem to not be quite working to clear up whatever the issue is, then maybe we've got more going on. And so if
Mm,
someone again is hollering and tearing up and doing all this, and you've slung the oil and we've laid hands and we've done all these things and they're continuing that, well then maybe we have something else on our hands, right? So
wow.
I think that we can't, and I feel like we almost like sensationalize demonic possession a bit, and
Yeah.
this is probably like not fully like on the Pentecostal track, but like it kind of irritates me a bit because why do we have to look at mental illness and then demonic possession like in the same thing? And I get it from a scriptural standpoint, but again, we don't demonize cancer to the point where you've got a demon in you. Now we need to have an exorcism to rid you of your diabetes, your cancer, your high blood pressure. No, you just go ahead and you take your insulin and come on to church, honey. So it just kind of bothers me that now because you have anxiety or depression or psychosis, now
Mhm.
it's a demon possession. Now it's rooted in evil. And now I've got to take this extreme spiritual measure to try to free you from it. When really you can go ahead and go and take your Resperdal, okay? And you're going to be just fine, honey. You're going to be
Amen.
just fine.
It's gonna
So
bless your
I think,
life.
It's going to bless your life and give you good
Let it,
sleep.
and give you some good sleep,
right.
honey. So
Sleep.
go ahead and get your Haldol injection, okay? So it's just like, that just personally bothers me, and I think that that's just, again, it's just a place where we have to begin to tweak our and reframe our mindset, that maybe everything isn't some sort of demonic root, and understanding that sin period can come in all different kinds of ways. The fall caused
Thank
all
you.
kinds of horrible things to come upon the earth, including mental illness, including physical illness, including financial hardship, including distinction between brethren. So if we're not going to just, if we can see that all of those things can have some sort of a spiritual root, then yes, let's continue to pray. Absolutely. But if the prayer and the fasting and all that is not it, then that's okay too. And it's okay to use other measures for, again, to get to your wellness. There's nothing wrong with
I,
that.
oh my God, y'all,
Sorry, I
listen.
digress.
No. This is perfect. You all apologize for nothing. Nothing. Everything you all are saying is so so necessary. Just as an FYI to those that are joining us tonight, thank you for those that are on with us. Listen, it's about to get even better. We're not going to try to keep you to all tonight, but listen, we have some information, some questions that are still coming. So we've been started. I can't say we're just getting started, but there's some stuff that we really want to talk about. So stay with us, okay? All right, Leah's back. All right, Dr. Malika had to get for a quick second, but she'll be back with us. But there's some more things that we're going to talk about. Let's go back to a question. I saw a question I think that my wife even posed. I think Dr. Malika is back with us. Okay. Not a problem. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. My wife asked a question. And if you all guys have questions, I'm going to ask my leadership team as well. You all know who you are. If you see questions, make sure you let me know. Text me. My phone is with me. Let me know what questions are being asked in the comments so that way I can see them and address them tonight. I saw. Okay, yes, my wife asked a question. Let's go back to this whole thing about grief beyond death. How do you handle grief beyond death? Even in such instances as, losing a job or divorce, things when it seems as though there's a ricochet, or not a ricochet, but a ripple effect, a domino effect. It seems like there's one thing after the other. What advice from a professional standpoint would you give to an individual who's just on the verge of giving up because everything it seems, and it's a common statement that I'm hearing more and more today, if it's not one thing, it's another. Even our way of processing that whole concept, what advice do you give to people who feel like they're in a domino effect, and they're dealing with grief beyond death? Like, it's no longer just the death part, but even when we look in the scriptures contextually, when a person, let's say a widow, had to deal with her husband who's passed because that was the main source of provision. He was the main source of provision for the house. And then the widow at Maine who was complaining and because she had to bury her son, because now the responsibility was to fall on him. And now it's like, I'm in an even tighter position. How do we look at that from the standpoint of what occurs today when people are dealing with this level of grief, even after a person has died? What is your thoughts? Anybody?
I think
Ray, come on, jump in. If you're ready, man, go ahead.
No, I'm not ready.
Okay.
What I was going to say was that is so complex.
Right.
Okay.
As you were talking, there's so many things that kind of went through my mind regarding dealing with grief after grief after grief after grief after grief with seemingly no reprieve. That can begin to really, really trigger some things that might have been repressed regarding how you view yourself, because some people might feel like the grief is happening because I've done something wrong. Or this, what have I done wrong? Or, I deserve this. It may take them back to something that they did, and they're feeling like it's a consequence for what I've done in the past.
So you say that death is not always in the sense of necessarily a person dying, but grief can be attached or associated with other things, such as like losing a job, divorce. That also can.
Absolutely. And it can trigger other things. It can cause other things. It can make you look at your self-esteem, or it can mess with your self-esteem. If you were a person that felt like you were highly favored by God, you might not be feeling that highly favored at this point. So have I been believing a lie? Am I really who I believe I am? Am I really blessed? Like, it can call into question so many things that not only are you dealing with just the loss of maybe finances and independence or a loved one or what was, you're going through the stages of grief while also trying to keep from plunging into depression. You may have control issues, control issues will make you feel like you are a failure because you weren't able to prevent
Right.
something from happening or control it while it was happening. So there, you know, we're talking, I just thought about so many clinical directions we could go in working with the person. And I would have to ask, what do I deal with first? Because they're going to go through the grief process. They're going to feel the shock. They're going to want to bargain. They're going to be angry, depressed until they get to acceptance. But what about all of the other confounding factors? Self-esteem, self-concept, control issues. Does God love me? Am I really pleasing God? Is this a punishment? All those questions.
Jesus.
I thought about when you said that the self-concept was actually where I went to, because some of us validate ourselves by our marriages, by our children, by our jobs and our professions, by being a minister. That's how we identify ourselves. So what happens now when you take that away? So now my self-concept is now fragile and is shaky, and I start to question just who I am because these things are being removed. So it gets to the root of really understanding who you are and being able to put together a self-concept is not dependent on validation by things that you do. Like some of us go to God sometimes for that validation. We feel like if I feel his spirit, then he's with me. That's like a validating feeling for them. They feel like that validates who they are. They were worthy, you know, enough for God to sit in their presence. Or I got this job, so that validates that I'm intelligent. Or I got married, so that validates that someone desires me. But when you remove that stuff, now it's like a house of cards. It starts coming apart. And then if you pull enough cards off of the house of cards, it's going to tumble down and you got to build that back up. So it's like he said, it's so convoluted. It's more than just helping you go through the stages of grieving the loss of whatever it is, marriage, job, a loved one. It's now what is actually being damaged because of the losses.
Right.
The losses are doing something and damaging you in a certain way. So now I got to deal with that, because we're really good in the church of dealing with the symptoms and not the root cause of it. So I have a pain in my knee. I take an ibuprofen that numbs it. But if I have a bad ligament in my knee, it's still there. The pain will come back. As a church body, that's what we do. We slap some prayer on it, put some oil on it, speak in tongues over it, you know, fast a little bit, you know, miss a couple meals, and that's supposed to get rid of it. But we never get to the issue. Right. And then you wonder why I've been saved for 20 years and I'm still dealing with the same stuff. You've got to get to the root cause.
So let's Lee, this is for you. So because of that mindset that has been created based on what Dr. Key and Dr. Blake have shared, because of that mindset of let's deal with it fasting and feeling like certain spiritual, not to negate the importance of spiritual practices and things that we've been taught, but trying to medicate something that needs to be dealt with from a psychological, mental, emotional position. How much of a disservice have we done to? I'm trying to put this the right way. When you're dealing with being under a leadership that emphasizes that, teach that, preach that, that's their main thing. What should we do as Christians or as believers, taking responsibility of our own lives, if we are in that environment and God hasn't released us from that environment where they say use these spiritual means to medicate your problem? What would be your advice to that individual? Because they're in an environment where they're taught, fast it away, pray it away, don't go see nobody, don't talk to nobody, but fast it and study and pray away. What do you say to that?
So what do I say to them, or what should we say? So,
either way, you can give us the red pill.
Number one, go find you a counselor, because honey, that's not healthy. But two, I think that there can still be spiritual like concepts that we can be able to apply to this in some ways. Like when you were talking, and I apologize if I'm not getting to the question you're directly asking me, But as
No, you're
everyone was
fine.
talking, I kept on thinking, grieve it unto life. And so, like,
Mm.
this idea of like laying your burdens down at the feet of God, I think that to me, if that's where we kind of misstep, is that we don't really give people the ability to be vulnerable in front of God. And I think that that's when we start to put a band-aid on a gusher, right? Like, we need to teach people how to strip down all of the clout, all of the titles, all the hoopla, and get really vulnerable and honest with God. If I am struggling and I am grieving, God said, please come to me. My yoke is easy. My
Yes,
burdens are light. So give me what you have. Give him the honesty of your guilt. Give him the honesty of your pain, of your
absolutely.
sadness, all of that. Give it to him and allow him to give you back maybe that spirit of joy, or, the being able to lift your spirits. Like, God, that's what he's there for. That's what he's designed to do. So you don't have to think you have to take it on all by yourself. And to do so, again, that's just a really unhealthy mindset. And eventually you are going to fall and you're going to fold and you're going to buckle under the pressure. And so, if I was in a place where that was the way in which my leadership advised for me to handle that situation, if I was insightful enough, I might take a look at their life and see if
Mhm.
it's honestly someone that I want to model after. If I continue to follow in your footsteps and I look like you when I grow up or what have you, is that really the life I want to live in? Because you're amazing on the pulpit, but your wife scowls at you every time you get up there. Your kids don't talk to you. You like, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, like, we
No,
Trace,
have to
right.
begin to
You
you're
talking right.
examine and examine the leadership in which you're under. And if they're not going in the trajectory in which you see yourself and you see for yourself, then maybe it's time for you to find other sources of mentorship. Not saying you got to leave the church, but maybe that might not be the footsteps you decide to follow after. Maybe I'll go and find mentorship other places, or find supports in other places that can build me up in a way that seems to edify me and me being the best person that I can be.
Mhm.
But I think ultimately we have to teach people how to get really real and go to God with our concerns and our problems as well.
And,
wow.
and what I love about God is not rushed.
Right.
Mhm.
That's one thing I would want people to know, especially church people. Don't rush grief. Grief is
Right.
a process that does not have a particular time frame or time
Mm-mm.
constraint on it.
Mm-mm.
Everybody grieves differently. Everybody grieves to a different degree. Everybody's process is not linear. They may go in and out of stages. Don't
Mhm.
don't feel so pressured to come out of grief as in the name of, "Ooh, I serve God." I knew it wouldn't last that long.
Trouble don't last always.
Trouble don't last always.
Right.
He brought
Stop.
me out.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Guess if you are able to stay with me just for a little while longer, I got a few more questions. I know y'all have lives, but there's just
I
if
got
I can.
time, but I'm also on the West Coast, so
All right. I, you
It's
know,
almost midnight.
I know it is,
No,
man. I just want to squeeze a couple more questions.
go
I
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
have
You
to
got
do a
me. You
part
got me.
two.
You
We
got
have to
me.
do a part two because this, yeah, we have not even scratched the surface of questions that I have. But because we have people on here now, since I see a few people on here now,
Okay.
let's throw it. Let's drop it. We're gonna drop it. I'm gonna drop one.
Oh
what you
Lord.
Why
dropping?
are things such as drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography are legitimate vices for ministers, although they've been demonized in the church? And when I say legitimate, I'm not saying as if they should be. I'm saying from the standpoint of this, from the standpoint of they are real vices that exist for people in ministry. Why are these things vices for ministers, although it's constantly demonized? Like, we'll preach against it, like we'll hear it preached against, and we'll preach against it ourselves. But
Mhm.
in secret, One of these, if not, and others, are actual vices that we deal with in private. Anybody can take it. Anybody.
Mm, mm.
Well, I think they're vices because they work. um, they're
Oh,
they're effective in what they're designed to do.
Yeah.
They're designed to light up the pleasure receptors in our brain to either
talk.
make us feel good or make us forget and avoid. They can numb us out. I can escape with these things. I can hide behind these different things. And so they're vices because they're effective. They work.
Mm,
And just because you are a person of the cloth does not now mean you're above your humanity. You are still of the flesh. Your mind and your body still desires the same fleshly things. Your tab did not somehow become some sort of shield across you unless you allow, the spirit to work as it should. So the spirit can help to try to maybe avoid those things or recognize that those things are separating me from God. So maybe I shouldn't, utilize those, or I will try my best to avoid those different things. But we fall to them because they work and they work well. And it could just be
Yes.
old habits. I mean, if
Mm.
we if we escaped as a coping skill as a child, then by by the time we're an adult, we're just going to find more adultish type things to escape with. Before it was
mm,
hiding under my covers. Now it's hiding behind alcohol or pornography. And so it just evolves. To me, it doesn't really change until you kind of do that work, go back and see what are you trying to avoid? What are you running from? And how can we try to get that piece of you healed so that those things aren't necessary for you now?
So, before anyone else jump in, let me throw in another question on top of that question.
Hmm.
Why do some people feel intimidated, or let's say they have been in conversation with their leader or their pastor,
Hmm.
and their pastor came down with an iron hand concerning how wrong it was, but there was no real true redeeming grace that was also given, to the point now, if there are continuing struggles, they are too afraid to go to their leader, or even if they have not gone to their leader yet, through the type of preaching or maybe the persona that the leader possess, or this type of pedestal that they put their leader on, or just certain things that they've said across the pulpit, has caused them to become too fearful to even go to them to get help, to be honest and say, this is where I'm at. Like, how much of this should be put on the leader to help in this process, or even seeking beyond the leadership, or even finding a company of safety among an accountability system? I'm speaking a lot of brothers and sisters that you can trust, because the scripture says, or do we misuse it to confess your faults one to another? It didn't say the pastor. So how do we put this into proper perspective tonight?
That's a lot. So
It's
Hammering.
a whole
that's a
lot.
lot.
It's a
We
Yeah.
whole
about
lot.
to get
I know
we
it.
about to get in trouble. We
Okay.
about
I
to get
know it.
in trouble.
So
We're
I
gonna
will
end on
deal.
this one. We're gonna
I will
end on
deal with
this
the
one.
first one, the first original
Okay.
question. I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
Lee, she touched on pretty much a lot of the stuff I was going to say. I also think that it points to our coping skills or lack
Good.
thereof. All right.
Yes.
So you may have a maladaptive way of coping with stuff. And when you're in ministry and leadership, coping a lot of times is necessary, but you have to have healthy ways of doing that because of the different things that you take on. You have to find a way to push through things that can be stressful, to be able to deal with things that are not, a positive. You're going to have negative experience, etc. But when we have this belief that we're almost like bulletproof, like that stuff doesn't affect us, it's really easy for us to go to those things, even though we preach on them, that, like she said, they're effective, they work. I remember growing up, I mean, I came from a very old school traditional church when I was younger, and they were making you say, there's nothing in the world, there's no pleasure out there. That's a lie.
A
Because
lot.
I'm just sorry, it's a lie. Because if it wasn't pleasurable, people wouldn't just be out there doing it.
Mhm.
Like, come
Thank you.
on. Like, there is pleasure that comes from the stuff that people do. That's why they do it. But you also have to look at the repercussions that come with these behaviors. So that's the other part of it. But I think that we were so programmed that we won't go out there because there's nothing pleasurable. And once we get on this side, it's so wonderful that we'll never want to go back to that. But they're still human. We're still human. It's still here. So our flesh still has desires. It still has issues that we don't know about. We have triggers inside of us that come up depending on the situations. So it really reflects our coping skills. Some are more susceptible to that stuff than others. If you come from a family where you saw people use substances to deal with adversity, you may not necessarily have that issue initially, but if you get put in the right situation, you start to go back psychologically to what you saw as the model for how you deal with this situation. So just because you're saved, that doesn't just go away. And so that's the coping part of it. Now, the pastor responsibility, oh man. This is not to demonize pastors because I'm a PK, so I have a very big sensitivity to that. I just feel like as a leader, you have to be responsible in making sure that you're not causing the death of a member that comes to you with an issue, regardless of how many times they come to you. If they make the same mistake 10 times, but 10 times they come and they talk to you about it, at some point you have to say the right words that are going to help them from a spiritual perspective and also from a natural perspective, because there's two things working there. I'll use a perspective and I won't say who the person was, but when my dad was still alive, he was pastoring. They went to my dad for the same issue. It seemed like every other week they were in his office for the same thing. And he could have been like, you just need to be saved. But then eventually he had to look at, okay, well, what's the root cause of why this particular thing is such a problem? Because they weren't coming for anything else but that. Like they were saved and they weren't struggling anywhere else but that. He was like, okay. And at the time we did have a psychologist on staff at the church. Okay. So he said, you may need to talk about what's causing this to be such an issue for you. And there was some history. Molestation was in the history. There was some stuff there that caused this particular thing to be an issue. So instead of killing the person and saying, you just need to be right, you got a demon in you, he realized that I could speak life into the situation and be a support and give a resource in addition to that, or I could damage this person from a spiritual standpoint to where they'll never come back. And I've seen that happen in the church where we've killed people so bad that they'll never come back to the church. Never. So, yeah. And I don't want to say all pastors are like that, but it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act.
Wow. I saw in the comments. Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in regards to those particular vices, not only do they work, not only are they pleasurable, but since we're talking about ministers, there are certain things that we gravitate to that allow us to hold on to our reputation in the presence of people.
Whoa.
And these vices are vices that can be done quickly. They can be done alone or with people who have just as much to lose as you do.
Talk about it. Let's stay there.
Okay. So we tend to go to these vices instead of the more outward, I'm in the club, dropping it like I'm hot where anybody can see me. No, I might be home drinking the bottle of alcohol every night, chugging it down because I can calm myself down. I can, get through the night and I could come out and I can still preach because nobody's seen what I've done. You know what I mean? So I think that's important to note regarding the specific vices that you mentioned, and what people don't realize that being a minister and preaching comes with a lot of emotion, emotional changes. People think getting up and preaching is easy.
No.
When in actuality, we're dealing with competitive spirits and comparison spirits and cultural issues and acceptance from other people and people evaluating whether we're really called or not, even though we know we're called. Like there's a lot of emotional stuff that happens for the preacher, and those vices that we can actually become addicted to are ways we regulate our emotions.
Wow.
How do I get back to normal? I go and do something like have sex, or I go do something and like smoke weed, or I go do something and I just drink alcohol, and it makes me feel temporarily normal. because my emotions are so intense. You know, so we have to, as ministers, have safe spaces. Like you said, the scripture says, confess your faults one to another that you may be what? Healed. That's what the scripture says. So if it says healed, that means that the faults, the sins are rooted in some type of needing to be healed. You know, but what the culture that we've come up in church has been kind of Catholic in nature, where we go confess to be absolved.
Right.
And I don't even want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But we go to pastors and leaders confessing the same thing over and over again. There's no repentance really, except for a few tears because we feel bad. And there's no healing taking place because we think once we tell them, we are absolved and we are, again, sinless. It's crazy. It's crazy. But that's not true. And that's why people keep having to confess the same things over and over again. It was no strategy attached to the confession.
Right.
Yikes.
And what you need to do is have a strategy that allows you to share or agree with. That word confess means to agree with God that what's going on with you is not right. Talk to someone, be healed. And then you can, go on from there. But we're not doing that. We're not receiving the healing. That's the problem. We're not receiving the healing.
Cameron, there's a comment that says that some of the leaders are their natural parents. So it's uncomfortable to be open with them. So I'm a PK, so I speak from firsthand experience when it comes to this.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes you have to understand what things you can bring to your parent and what things you need to go to another trusted person that you respect and that you know is on equal footing with your parent, that's your leader, that will give you sound advice when you need to go talk to them, because it's a touchy thing. My kids, they'll talk to me about certain things and they'll talk to my husband about certain things because we each got different things that are our hot buttons. And they know, well, if I talk to mom about this, she'll be cooler about it. But if I talk to dad about it, he'll blow up because that's a hot button for him. So you just have to, your parents are human. Even if they put on a robe and a collar, they're still your parents. And no parent wants to see or hear that their child is going through something or struggling with something or doing something that they know will lead to a bad conclusion. No parent wants that. And sometimes it's challenging for parents to separate being your spiritual leader and being your parent. It's hard. Like my dad would tell me, he would be in the middle of me talking to him and he would be like, well, I'm your dad talking. I was like, but you was just my pastor like 2 seconds ago.
Absolutely.
So it happens and they're human too. So I say, find a person that you can go to, that you respect, that you know your parent would not have a problem with you talking to, that you can get counsel from as well. Because sometimes it is challenging to have those conversations.
But we would have to also address the issue of restoration. Because in many churches, the scripture that says, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one. Mm-hmm. And a lot of churches teach and preach that the only spiritual person in the church is the pastor. Mm-hmm. You cannot receive restoration unless you go through me.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's tough. That's tough because I don't necessarily believe. I believe that the pastor is very spiritual, but not the only spiritual one. And I think that restoration can't just be the pastor saying that now you are restored, because now we've got to deal with how people look at you. The people have to restore you too.
Thank you. Since we definitely like to do the public shame. Well, I won't say they still do public shaming back.
No, they still do.
They still do. But if
it's
you're
just done differently
or not in the position, the people have to restore. You have to be restored in the eyes of the people too. The people have to restore you
because I've seen
themselves.
Yes, sir. Because I've seen circumstances. I'll just say that I've seen circumstances where the whole idea of a leader priding themselves on confidentiality, with saying certain things in private, but will still preach it across the pulpit and feel like they're still honoring confidentiality because they didn't mention names. And
that is not confidentiality.
True.
Because here's the problem. we know churches are small. No matter how big your church is, it's small.
They know
We
who
know
you.
what you're talking about. We
Mhm.
know.
And contrary to popular belief, I know this is thrown out there that sheep are dumb, but I'm not dumb.
Thank
Mm-mm,
you. Thank you.
I'm not dumb. I am very intelligent.
mm-mm.
And I think
I
that
know you're talking about me. We live in a
Right.
day of social media. We could pick up a sub post 20 miles away.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then we
Lee,
have
go
to go
ahead. Go
back
ahead.
to what is the motivation of the leader? Does the leader feel you can only come through me because I have authority problems or an authority complex and I need the validation of being correct and being an authority in front of other people in order to feel good and big about myself because inside I'm this little poor little boy who got scolded by daddy? I mean, the possibilities are endless. But you have to begin to now check how you are yielding your power and how are you using your office. If you're using it to admonish yourself, then that is an abuse of power and you're going to hurt people in the process. But if you can use it properly, then that's where you can get someone who can be a spiritual guide for you and be able to tell you this is what I think you need, whether that's a spiritually or counseling or whatever the issue is, then they can properly use that wisdom. But now you've got to begin to be self-reflective. How am I using my power? How am I taking the office of whatever it is I have, and how am I impacting other people?
The reason why, guys, I posed this question is because, and I don't know if I lost stream. I think it is. I saw that I think we're still streaming, or maybe it stopped and started again. Maybe it allowed us as an hour. Uh, Let me see. I'm checking my phone now.
I think it says
This,
we're still live.
it says we're still live. Okay, good, good,
Yeah.
good. All right. So the reason why I pose that question is for us who are on the receiving end of it, and then there are some of us who are, although we're young and in ministry, some of us are pastors, associate pastors, youth pastors, what have you. And so this is information that's vital. Again, like Dr. Malika said, and like all of our guests have agreed, this is not a pastor bashing session. We're not doing that at all, but we're showing you from
Right.
different angles and perspectives what does this feel like on the receiving end and on the giving end. And some of us, if we're not pastors yet, will one day be pastors if that's what God is calling us to. And we have to know how to navigate in these type of situations. We have to stop. I won't ask any more questions. I really wanted to, but I can't. There are many more questions that I have, and there's still space for you all to ask questions. But we will come back for part two. First, I want to give honor and love to our guests, to Dr. Ray, to Dr. Lee, I'm saying in the spirit, prophetically, to Dr. Malika, these incredible professionals and clinicians, counselors, therapists, ministers of the gospel. Thank you for sacrificing your time to pour into us. I truly benefited from this night, and I promise you, leadership team, I'm putting a plea out to you all. We and all those that are on here, let's get the word out. I know this, but I wanted to tell everybody. If you weren't on, you missed it. You missed it, and that's all there is to it. But there is hope because there's part two. My wife is sending me. I got it, baby. I got it, sweetheart. I hadn't.
Listen to her.
She's gonna be up here soon, so
You hear me?
Tell that.
make sure she get her answers ready.
Huh.
Get her answers ready too. That's right. She can join us next.
Yep.
But no, I want to give a shout out to my leadership team, to Pastor Liz, to Minister Jamie Lott, who is going to be doing download next week. Guys, don't miss download next week. We're talking about fear. And Minister Jamie Lott has a powerful word that's going to encourage and speak life to us all the way from Southern California. Also to Elder Denzel Tubbs and to Pastor Caleb. These are the ones that helped me get this thing going. They are such incredible people, and they are my dream team, and I'm so grateful for them. I'm grateful for our president, you, Madam President, Evangelist Frida Morrison, and to our Vice President, Pastor Kyron Shorter. Thank you for our leaders and allowing us to really push. They have been the push behind this and giving me such a blank canvas and said, run with it, paint whatever you want to paint, run with it. And we have a lot of exciting things coming. Also, just as an as a secret, this is only for those that are still on live. Next next we are doing the analysis of a sermon. We're analyzing a sermon, and the sermon that we'll be analyzing in a continuation to the anatomy of a sermon class that we did last week, on Monday and last week, we'll be viewing Dr. Lamont Turner. And Dr. Turner has agreed to be with us for our next live session, teaching. And he's going to walk us through the art of preaching. He's going to deal with it all, homiletics, hermeneutics. So you don't want to miss June.
Period.
So Dr. Lamont Turner, and so you don't want to miss it. Also, just to kind of sneak it out, we also have coming soon, not in June, but coming soon, probably in July for sure. Bishop Tyson has also agreed to be with us, Bishop Sean Tyson out of Youngstown, Ohio, who will be with how the improvisation of ministry, meaning how do you move at the speed of spirit? How do you move when it's not according to plan? How do you adjust, especially given the whole circumstances of COVID-19, pre, post, during COVID-19? How do you adjust to the move of God to match what's necessary for today? So he'll be dealing with that. So we have some exciting things coming, and there's some more things I want to share with you. Also, as another announcement, listen, guys, all of those that are ministers, all of you who are part of this alliance, there's 297. The majority of us are young ministers. The majority of us, it's okay, or young at heart. But we have created a database form. The importance of this database form is to create a database of all of those that are young ministers, who you are. So there are questions that this is important, and we're going to make sure that we renew this every year so that we can update this information. But we need your name, your date of birth, email, phone, city and state, church, pastor's name, council, diocesan, your license level. Are you in good standing with your dues and all of those things? So there are important information involved in this database form that you have to get to us, because we need this information ASAP, and we want to make sure that we include you. All right, with the guests that we still have live, I want to leave it open for you all to give final remarks regarding Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry. If you agree to it, we're going to have you back. We're going to do a part 2, I promise you. I want to do that. But my dear friend and sister, Lee Vincent, last words regarding Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry. What do you want to say to us before we go tonight?
I think I just end on begin to become aware of who you are and who you want to be, so that you can become who God intends for you to be. And if that means that you have to deal with the struggles that you might have had in the past or in the present, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I am all about dismantling the stigma. My mantra is see your therapist, take your meds, and pray. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. It makes you a healthier person. And I think that it makes you better in ministry and in leadership. So take care of yourself so that you can take care of others.
I'm back, y'all. My internet.
Yes, ma'am. Final words. I definitely. What do you have to say to us about Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry?
Right. I'm sorry.
My dog.
Bravo!
I had to get my dog. He's by himself, acting up.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, above all else, remember that you're a person. So strip away your title. Strip away minister, elder, evangelist, whatever that is. I'm Malika, and that's the heart of who I am. And that's the person that I have to minister to, take care of, and make sure that is good. So I give that to you as advice. Make sure you're okay. Take all those other layers, all the titles off. You got to get back to you. And I feel like if that's the foundation of everything, it's easy to add all the different components that you, or hats that you wear, when the source or the core is okay. So take care of you.
I love it. That's amazing. Dr. Key closes out, man. Whatever final remarks.
Yeah. I want to kind of echo what Dr. Malika said. I think one of the things that helped me most in ministry was realizing that can't nobody beat me being me.
I love it.
Comparison is the enemy of peace.
Mhm.
It'll rob you of joy, and it will never allow you the opportunity to fully develop the you that God intended for you to be.
Wow.
So I remember my pastor telling me, you know, early in ministry, your ministry is going to kind of go like up and down and up and down. But after a while, it'll kind of level out once you really get an identity for yourself.
Mhm.
Learn how to be you, because you are most anointed and most effective when you're doing it the way God gives it to you.
Right.
And don't let nobody tell you you're not anointed or called, because you're not doing it based upon how they feel it should be done. Because guess what? They're not doing a good job of it either.
You.
So have fun being you.
Yeah. Well,
I know I am.
Right.
no,
All right.
listen here. Listen, there's nothing else to be said. All hearts and minds are clear. I'm telling you, you're clear now. You're definitely clear. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. Guys, thank you so much. Y'all have blessed my entire life for the rest of 2020. I promise you, you have, and beyond. Thank you. If you all agree again, I know I asked this question and you all were still present, but weren't on here. If you are willing, we'll get the time and the date. We'll confirm all that. Will you all come back and do a part 2? Something like this. 3, 4, 5.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ray, please.
Ray, stop. Stop, Ray.
Sure, absolutely.
Let's do
Thank
this.
you all so much. Love you all dearly. God bless you, everyone.
Love you guys too.
And we'll see you on next Thursday with Download with Minister Jamie Lott. God bless you. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Thank you guys. Good night.
Now, how you get off this thing?
Right.
Right.